Hello, BookTube. I've got a little mail for you today, and boy, oh boy, do I need to do a mail haul. Ooh, mail hauls always pick me up. It's always nice to get books in the mail. And I didn't need to pick me up first thing today. Very first thing today, of course, dawn came up, and I read until a certain someone wanted to stretch and think about getting up and then flop back down. And then an hour later, think about getting up and stretch some more and then flop back down. I did a lot of reading while so-and-so was making up her mind to get up and go outside. And then a little bit later than that, I taped next week's episode of Cedarburg Public Library's Books of the Week. And to say that it went off the rails would be to imply that it was ever on the rails. It was absolutely hilariously fun to do. And that'll get posted on Monday, or we will collectively fire my producer, Jeff. That was going fine. And then the day started. Have you ever had this happen where the day seems to have a mind of its own? You know that it's not true. Logically, you know that it's not true. That all the different elements of your day are not connected with each other, except through you. And that something crappy happening in one part of your life and then something crappy happening in another part of your life that aren't connected is just a coincidence. You know that. But it still feels the other way. It feels like the day is conspiring against you, and that started to happen to me in a number of different ways, both on and offline. That started to happen to me. I'd like to think that I am a fairly balanced, I like to think that my default position is happy, but I don't suffer fools gladly, and I don't like rudeness, especially when it's offered knowingly. And I'm at a point in my life where I absolutely do not have to put up with anything like that at all. There's absolutely no coercive power on me to endure that kind of thing, or to stay silent about it. Just say, oh, well, I can't say anything. I wish I could. No, I don't do that anymore. I don't think anyone should. It's bad for you to bottle things up like that. You have to be sure that you're right, but once you are, it's better to say it and have it done, at risk of hurting people's feelings than not. And both in person and online, that happened to me a couple of times in the course of the later day, in the course of the later morning. And that's thrown me into a snit, I guess the word would be, a snit. Now, I did what I usually do when I feel that way, which is to take the bean on a nice long walk. It's a beautiful summer day. It's short sleeve weather, 70 degrees, 95% humidity, of course, but 70 degrees. I thought that would do the trick, and it mostly did, but there was one moment on the walk when there was something suspicious. It looked maybe like potential trouble for me, and I told my little dog to stop gripping the ground with all 4 feet, stop insisting that you stay where you are, and come with me. We will go back. Come with me now. My order is for you to stop, disengage, and come with me. And because I never tell her to do anything, she didn't. She just kept fighting, so that I had to physically pick her up off the ground to enforce my will. Which is, well, let's just say there's no other dog on earth who would have to go that far. None. Not one. Not even wild dogs. And, we got over it. Of course, we got over it. She doesn't like knowing that I'm even momentarily irritated with her. She really doesn't like that. And I don't like being irritated with her. So, and the moment passed, and there wasn't any danger, and we went back to where she was, and she forgot about it, and eventually I did too. But it added to the other nitpicks. In ways that, if you are hired to work on some external feature of my house, go right ahead and do that. That does not connect with me except when you get paid. That does not mean you are my guest. That does not mean, if I am here and you can see that I'm here, that does not mean that I'm idle. I'm working from home. So I'm not free to join you for lunch. I'm not free to let you in so that you can heat up your lunch at the stove and stand there talking to me. I'm not free to help you if you, like a moron, lock yourself out of your workspace. Of course, I will respond If it were cold outside, of course, if you had no other alternative and had brought no alternatives of your own, as you should, I wouldn't let you freeze to death out on the porch while instead of coming in here to heat up your food. Fortunately, it's hot, so I don't need to worry about that. But I would have needed to worry about it if it hadn't been hot, and I shouldn't. I'm not at your beck and call. I'm not part of what's going on here. You are working on the outside of the house. I am only going to connect with you when I pay you. I'm not just at your, hey, I'm knocking on the door. I'm wondering if you saw this piece of equipment or that piece of equipment. Go F yourself. I'm working. You wouldn't drive to a workplace and come into a cubicle and ask those questions. You would know right away that you couldn't do it. But for some reason, I'm sure that a lot of you experience this, especially since COVID. For some reason, people just fundamentally, molecularly do not understand the concept of working from home. They simply do not understand it. You could tell it to them 5,000 times and they wouldn't get it. You're here. Here is not a workplace, so you're idle. And also, if you conscript an editor to hire a writer to do a project, well, what things are you not allowed to do? You're not allowed to kibitz about the editing, and you're especially not allowed to kibitz about the writing. If you don't like it, then tell your editor to have it changed, to have the writer change it. If you don't like the end result, well, there's a contract, so you can try to welch on paying, but if you're deeply dissatisfied, if the end product is something you don't like at all, you're not going to use it at all. An ethical freelancer is not going to take all that money. They might take some of it, but they'll return the bulk of it for an inexplicably dissatisfied client. But even long before you get dissatisfied, of course, you're not going to be dissatisfied. But even long before then, if you wake up on a Friday morning and you're feeling a little twitching in your creativity bone, kindly keep it to yourself or spell something with your alphabet soup. If you're paying someone to do that, okay, then that someone does that, and then that goes to the editor that you're also paying, and then you get the final result. But the writer doesn't want to hear from you. And you're not entitled to make the writer hear from you because there's money on the table. There isn't money on the table. There aren't just random monopoly money or gold coins on a table. You know what's on the table? A contract. And the contract clearly stipulates what you can and cannot do. Sorry, I'm rehearsing my problems, aren't I? I thought we'd go through mail. It's only a Friday. No one in the world is doing anything like this on the weekend. That's a whole 2 days. And my default position is happy. I only need a little time to get back to that default position. I will read on the fainting couch in the summer sunlight. I have my little bean, who will not refuse a command again. I'm sure she will not refuse a command again. I think I've commanded her twice in my life. I've been right both times. And it doesn't matter if I'm right or not. If you are Canidae, not just Canis familiaris, but if you are Canidae, and I tell you to do something, you do it. It's as simple as that. You don't say but, you do it. And if I owe you an apology down the line, believe me, you'll get an apology you'll really like. But anyway, let's go through the mail to calm ourselves down. Now, of course, the first piece of mail is a periodical. And the periodical is not going to calm me down because it's the New York Review of Books and it's an election issue. So it has some fairly heavyweight writers involved here, some people that I try never to miss. But boy, oh boy, if I'm going to want to miss them on any subject, it's going to be the upcoming United States presidential election. I'm certainly going to want to miss them on that subject. I read it from front to back anyway, but there was nothing else in it. There was almost nothing else in it that wasn't some way connected to U.S. politics, which has been a complaint of mine about the New York Review of Books since it started. That if it's the New York Review of Books, don't put any political essays in it at all. And all through that time, all through the 70s and the 80s, I would say, it's another political issue of the NYRB. When I want them, they have access and clout to get the best literary people. Instead, I'm getting topical political stuff, which I can literally get everywhere else. So not an issue of the New York Review of Books to warm the cockles of me heart, but we do have packages. Let's see if the packages. Stop it, baby. Stop it, baby. The first package is wafer thin. It may be a slim volume of poetry, but I have a poetry guy, so I am not afraid of slim volumes of poetry anymore. So let's see what this is. Let's see if I'm right. Let's see here. Of course, in the attention-addled 21st century, a tiny thing could still be a book, right? How many novels are written now at 90 pages before the author gets tired and needs to restore their cocaine pile? All right. Okay, well, this has gone out, I believe, to my poetry guy already. This is the finished copy of Far District by Ishin Hutchinson. So this is a slim volume of poetry, but in this isolated instance, I'm happy about that because this is a talented poet. There are very few of those working today. And this is, we saw this already. Yeah, this is his debut, which was originally published in Jamaica. Is now making its appearance in the U.S. book market. So this came out in 2010 and is now out in this lovely finished trade paperback. So this is going to be $17 for a slim volume of poetry. But Ishin Hutchinson is worth it. $17 for a paperback that's 60 pages long is highway robbery, but he's still worth it. And the pub sheet is just going to be more of the usual falderall that poor publicists have to do when they're talking about modern poetry. There's no way to do it. But I now have this copy, but my poetry guy has the advanced copy, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure that's gone out already. So that's good, because I would like to keep a copy of this. So we're off, even though it's poetry, we're off to a fine start. I've just got a couple more packages here, and then I will subside. I may refrain from making any other videos, because the aforementioned blockhead workers are still here and could interrupt at any minute because maybe they need a pedicure or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, let's see. Oh, all right. Okay, these next two are tiny, but they are not poetry. So this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about, where you suddenly get 90-page books that are asking full price with just a straight face. They didn't care at all. Like this thing. This is 170 pages. This is by Andrea Barrett, and this is called Dust and Light on the Art of Fact and Fiction. Tiny little thing by a great author. And this comes out in February. It'll be a $27 hardcover, in which the author intimately explores how fact is transformed into fiction. This is a thoughtful collection of essays that draw from her experiences writing some of the most acclaimed historical fiction of our time. Inspiration found in the past, she argues, can illuminate fiction, just as dust scatters light and makes the unseen visible. Delving into some of the largest questions in the genre, how does a writer find meaningful subject matter beyond the confines of their life? In the 21st century, they don't even look. How are scraps of history transformed into a fully formed narrative? The author explores how she came to create some of her beloved works and explores lessons gleaned from the works of such masters of historical fiction as Toni Morrison, Leo Tolstoy, Hilary Mantel, and Colm Tobin. So this is going to be, a huge chunk of this is going to be her writing on those authors, which she did not do as part of her work on the art of fiction and fact, but rather what she did for the New York Review of Books or something else, just in terms of my own kind of writing. So that's all right. I mean, this is a great author, so I'm happy to read it, but that business of how this is a planned disquisition on the art of history as it entwines with the art of fiction is nonsense. Most of this is just collected book reviews that were written for money. But and then this next one is Henry Lean, Spring Summer, the Art of Eastern Storytelling. Oh no, the title is Spring Summer Asteroid Bird. What a title. And this comes out in January as well, February. Discussions in the West around diversity in the arts often focus on the identities of characters and creators. There's no discussion anymore. It's not a discussion. Speculative fiction author and writing instructor Harry Lean makes the path-breaking argument that diversity is about more than just plopping different faces into stories that are 100% Western in spirit. It can and should encompass diverse structures, themes, and values. Okay. Okay. The author introduces readers to Eastern storytelling, opening their minds to radically different ways of telling a satisfying story. Using examples ranging from Parasite to The 1001 Nights to the Mario video game franchise, the author shows how storytelling staples in the West, such as the three-act structure and themes of empowerment and change, are far from universal. He introduces East Asian four-act structure, as well as a circular and nested structures, and explains how Eastern value systems such as collectivism can dictate form. Okay, all right, that sounds challenging. That sounds really, really good. So who is the author when he's at home? Let's get these out of the way here. He is a writing instructor and speculative fiction author who teaches classes on Eastern storytelling. His writing has been nominated several times for the Andre Norton Nebula Award for speculative fiction. He was born in Taiwan and now lives in Los Angeles, California. Okay. Uh, okay. All right. I wonder all the usual things here. I wonder first, would anybody sign up for his classes on Eastern storytelling if he didn't look the way he did? And second, would he be first, second, or third in line to stone to death a writer who didn't look the way he did, who decided to talk about Eastern storytelling? Would he be first in line to do that? Maybe a big rock from his garden? Or would he be third in line because, he didn't get there soon enough? How early in the line to murder a white person who did that would he be? No question at all that he would be in the line. But how early in the line would he be? So those natural two questions, but neither one of those actually impinges on whether or not he's any good at writing at this sort of thing, at telling me about Eastern storytelling. I would argue that the basics of storytelling, what happens next, who gets their just desserts, is there an ending, is universal and has nothing to do with East or West, has nothing to do, actually, as far as we can tell from cave paintings, with even being Homo sapiens. I would argue that is true. I think that's true in any species, not just dead human species, but any non-human species that understands a story, understands those elements, and wants them in a story. So I guess what I'm wondering is there maybe a little tacit Orientalism going on here, which would be pretty ironic. But it's not until next year, so I don't have to think about it. And then we have this final package, which is a big heavy thing here, a cardboard thing, but it's still probably not a big book. I don't think there's going to be a big book in here. Let's see. Yeah, no, I'm right. All the stuff today is really, really short, which is really interesting in its own right. That's fascinating. Okay. Oh my God! Both the sheets. I got two invoices. So did you come with a sheet at all? Oh no, you don't. Oh my, though. Look at this. This is by Peter Dunn. It's called The Courage of Birds and the Often Surprising Ways They Survive Winter. A new bird book with illustrations by David Allen Sibley. How fantastic. So let's look at a couple of those illustrations, because you'll all know Sibley's illustrations. He's famous. And a lot of you, especially you bird fans, will have the Sibley Guide to Birds, and maybe some of the subsidiary ones. The Sibley Guide to Birds was a huge success when it came out about 20 years ago. An unexpected success. I knew that an elaborate new illustrated bird guide was coming out, but I didn't think it was going to get generally reviewed, and it did. And this is about birds in winter. And some of you will remember a really good book by Baron Heinrich, the author of Ravens in Winter. He did a book called Ravens in Winter about how ravens survive the winter and what they do all winter long. But he also did a book called Winter World about how animals just in general survive the winter. And what the book is talking about, that stuff that is piled up on the branches there, is called snow. If you're watching this video from 5 years in the future, well, A, it's called Trump snow, and B, it doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't happen in the lower 48, and probably hasn't since right around the time I'm making this video. But that is moisture, and that is particulate as a solid, that falls out of the air as a solid in the season that the ancients used to refer to as winter. And it wasn't just snow. It was that the season the ancients referred to as winter got cold, which means a lack of your normal temperature. It means a lack of warmth. It means that things start to get really cold, almost to the point where you're in danger or if you're, unless you wear a jacket, unless you wear some sort of outer covering. You'll have to look up jacket 2 and wool and Gore-Tex and all that sort of stuff. The day's just gonna keep doing it. It's gonna keep doing it. That person just blew out his transmission, and he doesn't care. He's pulled to the side of the road, and he's waiting for a tow truck. He didn't care. It was that explosion that he wanted. It's just the day is just going to keep doing this, but that's okay. Maybe I won't make any other videos. We can. There's no harm in an honorable retreat, none at all. We can just try again some other day. Anything that I do, not making another video, taking a long time between now and another video, anything would be better than getting angry. Anything. So we'll see. In the meantime. This is a little book about how birds got through what the ancients referred to as winter, a time when their natural food sources were not flowering or were covered over in this snow, and in which temperatures got really bad for an animal with such a high metabolism. The birds that are featured in this book don't hibernate. They don't have anything like that to do. So, if they don't migrate, once upon a time, whole populations of birds used to migrate in sync with the seasons. They would migrate to warmer climates when the normal climates got too cold. They had to develop all sorts of strategies for how to stay alive. My sparrows, for instance, nest in the wainscoting of the house, which doesn't sound like much. You'd be cold if you were there, but they are absorbing the heat of the house from the inside there. And they're giving none of it out to the environment, very little out to the environment, because they have gone inside the wainscoting between the siding and the house. They have not only gone in there, but they have packed it with insulating material, soft insulating material, including, I love to think, lots and lots of fur from my old dogs. I'm sure that they have done that because who knows how much of it I've swept outside over the decades. That's interesting to think, and they replenish it all the time to keep themselves nice and warm. So what have we got here? We don't have a pub sheet, but we can read the dust jacket. This is going to be a $28 hardcover. Despite the seasonal cold, birds have evolved strategies to meet winter's vicissitudes head on, driven by the imperative to make it to spring and pass down their genes to the next generation. The drama of winter for birds is both fascinating and astonishing, and in this book chronicles the behavior of birds of North America, expertly exploring their widespread adaptations and unpacking the unique migration patterns and survival strategies of individual species. With a naturalist's eye for detail, the author also addresses the impact of changing climate conditions on avian longevity and recounts personal anecdotes that truly soar. And this has Sibley's illustrations all throughout, of birds tucking in their tender bits in the face of biting cold and whatnot. Here they are at a backyard feeder, put soot in a feeder so that since their food sources are imperiled or gone, they would come to backyard feeders. Winter used to be a very fruitful time for birders, especially armchair birders who don't want to go out into the field. You just put a couple of feeders out within clear view of a window, and everybody's going to come there, especially if you're in the suburbs or the country. It won't just be birds. It'll be raccoons and martins and chipmunks and squirrels and even deer will come to a feeder that you put out for birds. There have been a couple of books on that subject that have been really, really good. But I'm always up for a new bird book. Always. This one is about winter. That's going to make it feel a little strange, but it's still, I'm always up for it. So what do we know about the author? He is the founder of the World Series of Birding and a former director of natural history information for the New Jersey Audubon Society and former director of the Cape May Bird Observatory. And he's an experienced tour leader, well known for his columns and contributions to publications such as American Birds and Birding. Okay, so he knows the subject backwards and forwards. No offense to his expertise, but I'm thinking that probably a large number of the sales of this book will come from the fact that it has Sibley's artwork in it. Now that I think about it, I don't have a copy of the Sibley Guide to Birds, and I probably should. Oh boy, I can't remember the last time I saw that used. I'll have to look into it. But in the meantime, that's the mail. So it is a mail haul entirely of skimpy little things. some of them look interesting, but Steve likes big fat books. This is what I got today will take me no more than 2 hours to read tonight. All of it today will take 2 hours to read. That leaves huge numbers of time. So we have The Courage of Birds, how they got through the season the ancients referred to as winter. We have Dust and Light, in which Andrea Barrett, a well-known author, writes pieces about authors writing historical fiction and also probably a couple of pieces of her own about historical fiction. We have Spring, Summer, Asteroid, Bird, in which an author talks about Eastern-style storytelling. And I hope refrains from saying that my grandparents were horrible people. That would be great. If he could just talk about Eastern-style storytelling, that would be great, instead of grievance politics. But we will see. And Far District, which is Isheen Hutchinson's debut, his Jamaican debut, here in a lovely new finished paperback for the American market. So there you go. That is hardly anything at all. The total here is probably 270 pages, something like that. Maybe 400 pages. That's not much, but you know, you take the mail hauls as you can get them. So I'll wrap this up for now, and we'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.